Look at the first question here. How do our cells work together properly? They do, obviously, because we're alive and hopefully mostly healthy. But how do different cells in your body communicate with each other? Think about something we learned early in the year. What kinds of signals are used between cells? The other thing to consider is how cells even get their jobs. How does a new cell know that it's going to be a heart cell or a brain cell or a stomach cell? Again, we've learned about this early in the year, so pause the video, think back, and then we'll move on. What is regulation? This definition says it's the ability to monitor the maintenance of homeostasis, but what does that mean? Well, it means that something in your body is constantly checking how everything else is going and making any adjustments that are needed. When cells talk to each other, we call it communication, just like when people talk to each other. This is done using cell phones. Wait for someone to laugh. Still waiting for someone to laugh. The rest of you will get there. A few different body systems will help regulate the rest of the body and try to maintain homeostasis. These include the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the excretory system. We'll mostly focus on the nervous system over the next few days, but all three will play some kind of role in keeping things in your body functioning normally. What are specialized cells? What does the word specialized mean? Where do you hear that ever? Well, specialized means different and specific or individualized. We also call them differentiated cells, again, meaning that they're different from each other and other types. So these red blood cells look and act differently than other types of cells in our bodies. But how do these things get different appearances and jobs? Every single cell has the exact same instructions as every other type of cell. They have the exact same recipes, the same DNA. The trick is that only some of the instructions are read by each type of cell. So these cells are going to be red blood cells. They don't really need to pay attention to the instructions for being a white blood cell or a skin cell, as shown here. Once these other instructions are turned off, all that's left are the red blood cell directions, the specific instructions for how to be the best red blood cell they can. How do we think the signals are delivered to the cells, though? Who exactly tells the red blood cells to turn off the other directions and only read some of them? Who's controlling this? That's what we're going to see now. As we saw much earlier in the year, signals are sent in the body using messenger molecules that fit into receptors based on their shapes. In this picture, the secreting cell on the left releases a circle-shaped messenger molecule into the bloodstream. So this guy right up here is sending this little round shape into the bloodstream to send a message somewhere else. It travels around the body until it finds one of these target cells over here, with a receptor that matches the same circle shape. In this way, other cells are prevented from getting a message that's not meant for them. Only the target cell gets the message because it's the only one that speaks the right language to read the message. If you don't have the right shape, that message was not meant for you and you're not going to be able to translate it. These messenger molecules are called hormones, and they're types of proteins. Just like other proteins we've seen, like enzymes and antibodies, hormones depend on their shapes to work correctly, as we just saw. Hormones are released by small organs called glands. The pancreas is a gland, just like we learned during the digestive system unit. Remember the accessory organs, those type of glands. These salivary glands are other glands. The body system that's in charge of sending hormone messages is the endocrine system, and it helps control bodily processes by sending these little messenger molecules around from one gland to a target cell. And to reiterate, the shape of a hormone controls what message it sends and who it's able to talk to. A triangle message can't be read by a circle receptor, but it can be read by a triangle receptor. So if hormone A down here does not fit into this shape on the receptor over here, then this cell will not be able to read the message from hormone A. It will be able to read the message from hormone B because their shapes match. If a cell does not have the right shape, it means the message was not meant for it, and it's not going to understand what that message says. Let's look at some glands that send important messages. Metabolism, which is all the life processes done by our bodies, but we normally associate with things like energy use, height, and weight, is controlled by hormones from a gland in the throat called the thyroid. It's right up here. And it looks a little like the Capitals logo, so we know it's really cool and important. The adrenal glands sit right above the kidneys and make the hormone adrenaline. This is the fight or flight response. That's what's controlled by adrenaline. Maybe here, I got an adrenaline rush, I got this boost of adrenaline. Usually for maybe a sport, you'd hear that phrase. This increases heart rate and blood sugar levels, as well as sending extra blood to the brain and muscles. These changes give us a boost in strength, speed, and decision-making when we're confronted with danger. So adrenaline helps keep us alive by letting us either defend ourselves or get away from it as quickly as possible. This is an evolutionary thing. If a saber-toothed tiger suddenly jumps in front of you, if you don't get away from it or be able to fight back, you're probably not going to survive. The pancreas is a gland we've talked about before, including yesterday in the blood sugar pogo. It releases two different hormones, and one we've seen a lot of this year, the other one we've seen very little of. The first is insulin, which tells the body to store sugar in the blood for whenever it's needed later on. It's sent to the liver and stored as a chain called glycogen. The second one that we've just learned a little bit about is kind of the opposite, the anti-insulin. And that one's called glucagon, or glucagon, if you say it funny. And this is the signal for the liver to release that stored sugar right back into the blood whenever it's needed. So if your body recognizes that there's too much sugar in your blood, you're not really doing anything, you don't need all that extra sugar, all that extra energy, it'll store it in the liver for later. Once you need that extra energy, though, it very quickly can get it released from the liver and sent to the blood to be delivered to any cells that need it, like, again, the brain or the muscles. The last glands we'll see today are the gonads, which control sexual development and maturity, as well as physical gender characteristics. And the gonads are ovaries in females and testes in males. We'll come back to these in a few chapters. This is the same deal as the other day. Finish the form questions underneath this video in your OneNote notebooks. Then go to your content library and complete the file called L9.2 signaling work. It's the questions associated with this lesson. Hopefully we'll be back with computers in the next couple days, but until then, this is what we have to work with.